introduce to you, chap from across the border, Anthony Antonio, the KPC from Northampton.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. It's an absolute pleasure to be with you tonight. I'm going to talk about something that's close to my heart, both professionally and personally, which is the housing crisis, because it is getting worse and worse and it is not being addressed. On the contrary, I feel that recent decisions by our Chancellor, who has, I understand, been dubbed the fiscal drag queen, has actually made things even worse. Now let me just start. However, before I start, just digress just for a moment on the point that about Ben Habib's prophecy about whether we should win or not. I actually went out to campaign in Wellingborough for Ben Habib. At the door, hardly anybody would declare who they were going to vote for. And as you know, thanks to the media, the narrative is anybody who disagrees with the narrative is far right. And people, many people out there do want to vote reform. They are fed up with what's happening, but for some strange reason, they're scared to be open about it. As we've seen from the statistics, there are more people who are not voting than are voting. And of those people who are voting, there are more people who do not want either of this insidious duopoly than people who do. So, as far as I'm concerned, it is an open playing field. And I have absolutely no doubt that vote by vote, seat by seat, anything is possible. I'm here to win my seat. Every other candidate is here to win their seat. And we need to go and give this arrogant, deceitful duopoly a black eye, the pair of them. As I said, I'd like to address the housing crisis because I believe that not enough is being done about this. And here's some statistics that are quite important. In October 2022, these are government figures, there were over 676,000 recorded empty homes in the UK. These are derelict properties, unfit for purpose, long-term vacant. Meanwhile, people are craving for a home and struggling. Now, who's going to renovate these properties? Will it be Redrow, Barratt's, Persimmon Homes? They're not interested. They just want to build more Legoland properties on your children's playing fields, move in, move out, and move on to the next one. It is people like you and I who renovate properties like this. The British public love property. They love renovating properties. However, in his wisdom, what has the Chancellor done? One small little benefit the British people had, which was £12,500 capital gains tax allowance, he's all but eliminated that. My opinion would be that, subject to certain conditions, he should have increased it. He should have encouraged people to go out there and take on these properties and renovate them, because that's what the public can do, and all of these homes should be brought back into use. And in fact, conversely, he could have also offered extra incentives for those who take these properties and improve their energy performance for the next generation. We have some of the most beautiful and oldest housing stock in the world, and although we like to live in the knowledge that we own our home, many of these properties were here before us, they'll be here after we're gone, we're just passing through. We're caretakers. Why should there not be an ongoing policy from the government to encourage people to not just maintain these properties, but also to improve them so that people can get a home? Many of these properties may be in the wrong place, but the only reason that they may be in the wrong place is because the Islington Brigade are too London-centric. Wherever there are vacant homes, they can offer incentives for businesses to move there. There's one beautiful thing, or several, about businesses. It is that they're heartless, they have no emotion, They don't really care about their environment, they care about their bottom line. Offer them an incentive and businesses will begin to move. If businesses begin to move into areas where there are vacant housing, people will move there because there will be jobs there, and it will help to distribute jobs, housing and wealth throughout the country. Now, the government estimates that 300,000 new homes are needed per year. Now, this is obviously a government statistic and we all know that they wouldn't lie, but I struggle to understand how we only need 300,000 new homes per year when 1.4 million people came here last year. I know Ben Habib said 1.3, but it was actually 1.4. That doesn't seem like enough to me, but either case, it's a point to note. Now, in 1988, small developers were responsible for 4 in every 10 new build homes, compared to just 12% today. 30 years ago, there were about 12,500 small builders generating under 100 homes a year each. Today, there are only 2,500. That's 1/5. More than 1.1 million homes granted planning permission in England in the last decade are yet to be built. What's happening here? The major developers are buying up all of the land with permission, holding on to it, squeezing out the small developers, and they are drip feeding the property to control the market. If they were selling stocks and shares, they would all be in prison. 8 of the largest developers are currently under investigation for price fixing. For those of you, if you've ever come across me online, I do lots of videos about property, advising people, simply because I don't like to see people exploited. And throughout all of last year, I was categorically stating, if you are a first-time buyer with a small deposit, do not buy a new house now. And if you've reserved one, pull out. Prices are falling, the entire industry is lying to you, and if you buy property now in a falling market, you are signing yourself for negative equity for the next 4 or 5 years, even though that's not what was being said in the media. At least twice as much land is provided every year for housing than homes started. More than 30% of homes with planning permission never get built at all, and it is almost double that in London. Again, big developers buying up land stock, squeezing small developers, and then making you pay more and more on these housing estates where they've turned roads into alleyways, garages into sheds, and living space into minimal space. So what can we do about it? 1. Capital gains incentives for private renovations. Joe Public should be encouraged to renovate these properties. An army of small independent developers, renovators. Incentives for improving EPC ratings. Affordable housing investment tax breaks. What is that for? There are so many people who are maybe exiting landlords, people who've just got plenty of money who want to invest it. There is such a large need for affordable housing. How about offering incentives for private investors to be able to collectively build large estates of housing? Because building 100 or 200 houses reduces the cost per unit significantly than building half a dozen. These properties could be offered to people as affordable housing with an option for them to be able to buy it, say after 5 years. The investor would get a yield return for a 5-year period, and at the end of the 5th year, the property could be sold, they'd make a profit, move on to the next one. Property could be built as affordable housing without costing the government a single penny. If that's the case, I'm sure they know that it can be done, so why don't they do it? Accelerated urban regeneration. There is so much land and property within cities that could be regenerated, and the manner in which we regenerate these properties is also needs to be considered. There's more encouragement for people to use their cars less, for example. I'll use the Barcelona example, which I appreciate that Barcelona is unique in its grid layout, But Barcelona has gone for regeneration en masse with mixed use, ground floor retail, first floor offices, the rest of the floor accommodation. It is not about banning people from using their cars. It is not about punishing them if they can't afford a new car like our friend Not down in London is doing, but it is about them not actually needing to use their car as much because they're creating proper living areas. And also penalties for land banking and enforced completion timescales. If developers own land with planning, if they do not complete the building work within a period of 2 years or 3 years or whatever it may be, they are either penalised or they must sell it and make it available to other developers who will build. Simplified land partitioning. If land has permission, planning permission, then if a team of individual small developers, half a dozen, a dozen, 2 dozen, if they want to buy it and break 10 acres into 10 or 12 different pieces so that they can all build their unique little areas, then the local planning should not unreasonably prevent them from doing so that we can encourage small developers who build beautiful, unique, secluded developments rather than the carbon copy we get from the big developers. Support for independent developers because they really matter. I believe we have a burden of responsibility to ensure that the young have access to their own home, to raise their own family and to build their own lives. And this is really, really important because I believe let's encourage procreation, not immigration. And on that note, ladies and gentlemen, it's time for reform.
Fantastic, fantastic.
Thank you.
What an act to speak after, what an act to speak after. Anthony Antonio, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed. Now, a few thanks.